to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
Life would be so much better if there were piñatas strategically placed throughout my day.
And Dale Hummel.
Let common sense prevail.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, how's your week?
Well, it has been a really interesting week. And of course, the most obvious thing that has happened to us in the livestock industry is that the National Western Stock Show has canceled for the year 2021. But we're going to save that for a little bit because that kind of parlays right into our topic for the week. So we're going to talk about some other current events. And I know you have many that you need to get off your chest, but I have to talk to you about your brother, Beijing Biden, who you love so much.
Wait, my brother Joe.
Your brother Joe, yes. Sleepy, creepy Joe, Beijing Biden, yeah, him. Okay, so he went out into the field beside his house. He got out of the bunker, went into the field. Now, I want to paint this scene for everybody first because he had a teleprompter and he had a podium, and that's fine. And so there were these circles drawn on the ground of the field. And then there was a chair in it, and that is where the reporters would sit. And they could not move outside of the circle during this. If you saw a picture, it was super weird. But anyhow, during this, he bashed Trump and all this other stuff, and he was talking about the wildfires in California and all these other events in terms of weather. And then he told the American public that was actually listening to this horseshit that when he was elected president, there would be fewer fires, floods, and hurricanes. Now, these are acts of God and Mother Nature. This is not something he can control. So unless he had a socially distanced masked meeting with Mother Nature or the Lord Jesus, I'm not sure how he's promising this.
I'm going to look at it as if can control those things. He is godlike. And if he's godlike and has control over that many things, I want him as our next president.
So I'm just saying that was a lot for me. And then another positive, which I don't know if that's positive. I think that's comical and he's super stupid. But positive note is the Big Ten is going back to playing football now. And y'all know that I could give a care less about anything foosball, college, pro, or little league. But one thing that I do know it will do is if these colleges are playing football, it is going to free up judging teams to be allowed to travel. So that's why I'm all for that.
No, and while we're on that, we had here this past weekend, the National Barrow Show held in Des Moines under another name and a collegiate judging contest. And I'm not sure if they had a 4-H and FFA. I assume so. But teams were limited in terms of who was able to attend. I believe none of the Illinois junior colleges and maybe only one of the universities. But Ryan is exactly right. When the Big Ten goes back to playing football, it's going to be pretty difficult for them to say, hey, you can't travel with your judging team. You can't do this or that. So I think that's a positive move. I think we're going the right direction. And I really, really hope that these universities and junior colleges loosen those policies a little bit. And some of them have in place. We can only travel within our district or a 50-mile radius or only within state. People, COVID is not staying within boundaries. It's everywhere. You're probably in a higher density of COVID staying at your university, city, or town than you are traveling to Louisville or Kansas City or somewhere else. So there's no logical implementation of what they're trying to accomplish or the protocols they're putting in place simply are not going to work. I appreciate they're trying to protect the kids, they're protecting others. The thought is great, but it's simply not practical.
No, I agree. And like I said, I could care less about college sports, professional sports, any of that. But I do know that if the colleges are letting the people play football, then they can't tell my judging team coach friends and their students that you can't get in a van and go compete. So that part I really appreciate. I don't know if you know, but Trump had a town hall last night on ABC, and they said that everyone that was in there were undecided voters. I do not believe that at all, because questions were all basically aimed to make him completely fail. He did an exceptional job answering those questions. He was very empathetic to their concerns. He never lost his cool. I thought some of the highlights out of that is that he reiterated again that he thought a vaccine was weeks away. He said it may be 4 weeks or 8 weeks, but they were in weeks away. And he also highlighted the fact that the COVID-19 numbers have continued to decrease even after the Labor Day holiday, that hospitalizations have drastically decreased and deaths have drastically decreased. And I also want to bring up something he didn't bring up, but we have like some 6 million cases, which, granted, is a huge number. Yesterday, I saw that India, who does not do 1/4 of the testing that the United States does, surpassed 5 million cases.
With very limited testing.
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think our numbers are so skewed because we are testing so hard. But you know what? And I visit with some people, and I talk to some people there at the Arizona National, and they have a testing facility right there in the grounds. And they say now you're lucky to see one car pull into it. I think people are finally starting to slow down. Those that wanted to get tested got tested. We're slowing down, hopefully moving forward. And you know what? The more I think about this testing, and I have 2 children in college, and they've asked me, should they go get tested again? I tell them, no, there's really nothing that's going to do other than tell you right at that moment whether you're carrying that virus. You may be exposed to it minutes afterwards. You may have just finished your exposure. It's really such a snapshot that it's maybe not doing as much good as what we would like it to. I'm not saying there's not some contact tracing and some tools we could do within reason, but at this point, it's really becoming obsolete.
Well, and again, I'm going to stand by that this is more of an election infection than anything else, but I do find it very interesting that Pelosi, your sister, has announced that after she got her hair done, that she is going to make Congress and House stay put until they pass a bill for another stimulus bill. And that is only because, and she slipped up and so did Schumer, both slipped up because, and said to some extent that because polling is telling them that is what needs to happen. So she's going to keep them there, and they're going to come up with something, somehow, they say.
And there is no doubt that the polls and people want another stimulus. I don't have a problem with another stimulus as long as it's directed to those that truly need it, whether it be the small business or the self-employed or anybody that's been hugely impacted by this. Not the state of Illinois, not the state of California that's misspent money for decades.
Well, and my favorite senator of all United States, that lovely little man from Louisiana, Kennedy, last night, I just love that crazy old hoop. But anyway, he was on Tucker or Hannity, I can't remember which one. And so he was talking about the fact that Pelosi can do whatever they want, but that last week the Senate, 52 of the 53 Republicans agreed to pass something, but they couldn't get any Democratic support for it because everything that is wrapped up in this new stimulus bill as far as the demon rats is that they want to bail out California and New York, and he said that is not going to happen in my lifetime. So
he is the roadblock. Ryan, I want to address something that's been on my mind and bothering me, and it's really come to a point that I'm going to speak about it. I don't know if it's going to be popular. I don't know if I'm going to be deemed a racist. I don't know what direction our listeners are going to take this, but the facts are the facts. The truth is the truth. And when we talk about the shooting of the LA police officers, the 2 officers that a thug walks up to their vehicle and shoots them multiple times, these acts are unbelievable. They're snowballing. It's something that if we don't change that environment, we're going to continue to see more and more of this. And I think if we want to bring things to light, we can almost imagine, I guess, the mindset of those out there. We have a person videoing this with their phone. shortly after the shooting takes place, and this is the best example I can come up with, they actually are celebrating the fact that these police officers were shot, that they deserve it because of reparations and everything that the police officers have done to that community. While these two officers are fighting for their lives, this person is celebrating it. Then several of them go to the hospital and attempt to protest or let themselves be heard that they hope those police officers die. This is hard for me to accept. This is out of control. And I have some reasons why I think it's happening. And in my mind, criminals are becoming emboldened in this environment, and it's snowballing. I put this in the lap of the extreme left, the BLM, and those that support the idea that this violence is justified as reparations. This is crap. Enough is enough. In the Black community, statistics prove there are more shootings, there are more deaths. But if you look at the numbers, the biggest threat to a Black American walking down the street is another Black American. Do we hear anything about the hundreds of Black lives taken each week that overwhelms the number of Black Americans unjustly harmed by the police? We do not. When Biden and Harris tickets support the BLM, when Kamala raises money to bail out thugs from rioting, they are encouraging this lawless uptick in crime. I promise this is not what 99% of the population wants, nor how we want to raise our children in an environment such as this. It is eating at me. The Black Lives Movement is rooted with thugs and craziness. If this organization was rooted with people that want to continue the push for civil rights and they address real issues that may exist, I'm in full support. There are racists in the world, and there will always be racists in the world. This is something that no law, nor politician, nor BLM group will change. It is wrong. It should be brought to light. But we also need to look at another form of racism that's becoming a social issue, and I think it's contributing to the anxiety and the division and all the things that we're feeling right now. In my mind, when you're required to hire or embrace others strictly on ethnic origin or gender, that has gone way too far. When the extreme left continues to tell a portion of our population they cannot make it without a handout or special rules, you are convincing this segment of the population that they are lesser, they cannot succeed on their own. Why would they try if they continue to be told it can't be done? I'm at a loss with where to even go with something like this. One more thing on it. The culture reminds me of what Candace Owens has explained many times about how the extreme left thinks. If I have a problem, who do I blame? That is their motto at this point. If I have a problem, who do I blame? If I'm a woman, I blame men. If I'm poor, I blame the wealthy. If I'm short, I blame the tall. This is at the heart of many of our current problems, and it is all about accepting personal responsibility. You can take control of your life, make choices, and it will make it better or it'll make it worse. That is in your hands. People in America have no idea how good it is in this country, the opportunities we have in this country compared to the rest of the world. People are blind or ignorant to the truly horrible conditions many people are in around the world with no way of getting out under any circumstance. This is why the Cuban Americans and others that have come to this from socialist countries that now reside in Florida are coming out in support for President Trump. And I wish I could put it in words to express my emotions on this, but we're going down a path, and I'm not trying to exaggerate anything, but this lawlessness that's been allowed to happen is just the fringe, and it's allowing a mindset that it's okay to break the law. You're not going to be held responsible. The fact that we can't take personal responsibility, the fact that we can't hire people on their own abilities versus race or gender, it's all wrong. I'm going to probably stop there.
Feel better now, Joe?
I do. I feel much better.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm
eating at me.
Or the situation, because it is terrible. And actually, I don't think you meant to lift this out, but there was another cop that was shot at point blank assassination attempt on another cop after the two cops in LA already. And so this is something that has happened more than once in this past week. And it is awful and it is terrible. I do not think that either presidential candidate or any political person can fix this. I do think that obviously Trump is way more pro law and order than what Biden is. And I think the Republicans are way more law and order than what the Democrats are. I think that no matter what happens in the election, we're going to have some unrest either way, and some of this is going to continue to happen, but it is going to be the job of whoever is in power. And I don't mean just the president, but whoever is in power of the House and the Senate, for all of them to work together to make sure that these type of things come to an end quickly and rapidly, and that those people who have done this are prosecuted to the utmost letter of the law. There can be no lenience whatsoever when they are found and tried. I touched on that ABC town hall that Trump did last night, and this Black Lives Matter and, all of this racism got brought up in one question, and it's specifically targeting defunding the police and stuff like that. Trump was very good on this question. It was probably his best answer because he stayed with statistics. And 81% of African Americans in the United States want more police than less. Now that says it all right there.
Yeah, there's no question. And that extreme segment of the society that's out there rioting and looting and doing these things with primarily because they can, because there's not law enforcement out there to stop them. You open the door for that. They continue to do this. They become more brave. They become more, I guess, in their mind, they can just do whatever they want because they're not going to be held responsible or accountable for it. But it's frightening to me that we're going down a path that's not good.
No, I completely agree. And again, no matter who wins in November and whatever, it is going to be all of our leaders' collective responsibility to bring this to a screeching halt and to try to make this country more unified. I don't think you have to be completely unified as a country on all topics or issues, other than the fact that we're probably we need to be all unified on the fact that we're proud to be an American and we're proud to live in this country. And after that, there's going to be divisiveness and differences of opinion and, heated discussions and all that. But if we could just get back to the point where we are all proud to be Americans and proud to live in this country and what it stands for, then I think the battle is won.
That is the heart and soul that we need to move from. And we can argue about different things, and that's fine. We all need to have our opinions, but stick to that basic, and I think we're good. On a positive note, I sleep better. There's things in the world going on that concern me, and the Middle East has concerned me for a long time. Obviously, it's the hub of terrorism. We continue to have issues coming out of there, and Iran's in the very middle of it all and causing a lot of issues. But I noticed that there's very little coverage on this historic peace deal that Trump has brokered in the Middle East.
Sir, two.
Oh, it's amazing.
Two deals.
Israel and the United Arab Emirates are there. They're coming together, formally establishing diplomatic ties because of the encouragement and the work upon the U.S. government, including Trump and his team. It's amazing to me, and it looks like there's further progress expected. I believe
he said at the ceremony yesterday there were at least 5 more countries in the Middle East that wanted to sign into the same. And a couple of things on this that have not been brought up and have not been covered. The last time there was any type of peace negotiations or agreement in the Middle East was when Bill Clinton was in office. And there was only one other time in the whole history of the United States. So in 1 week, Trump has produced 2 different Middle East peace deals when there had only been 2 in the whole history of the United States before that. Now, say what you want, that's pretty badass.
When you can get Israel and their Arab neighbors to come together, and you mentioned there's 4 or 5 others, you're talking about Oman, Sudan, Morocco, and Saudi Arabia. if they can all come together and at least establish diplomatic ties with Israel, this in essence becomes a united opposition to Iran, Hezbollah and Hamas, all of them.
That is where Trump is succeeding, where everyone else has failed. Every president, except for Barack Obama, who really did not try to make any... He didn't fail at doing anything over there because he didn't try to do anything over there. Both Bushes, Clinton, you can go on and on. They have all tried to tackle this. And their concept was to go at Iran and try to bring them to the table. Trump has flipped the whole switch. He is going to get everybody else together and put all the pressure and isolate Iran. And one of the biggest things about this peace deal that signed yesterday, those two countries border Iran.
Oh, it's putting pressure on Iran. And this is, I didn't know that there was ever a solution to the Middle East. And you know that a lot of these deals are signed and they don't work out. But this looks like true progress. And I think the approach and the direction that President Trump and his staff are taking is the most logical approach to get Iran back under control. Because it's a real issue. And I know that a lot of times we get in our little bubbles and we don't maybe worry about what's going on in the world. But they have capabilities right now for nuclear weapons. Not very many, but it's there. And the fact that they're going to give those to whoever terrorists, they're going to use them in the most effective manner they can. Iran needs to be under control. They need to have some type of pressure put on them to the point where they simply can't continue to do these things.
I would also like to bring up that Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize twice.
Amen.
In the past week, because for both of these deals. You don't hear that either, but
no, not you hear almost nothing about it.
But that's fine. But
what do we hear? We hear, "Come on, man."
That's Joe. That's your brother.
That's it. My brother Joe. Come
on,
man.
He did tell people last night that he is preparing for the debate on the 29th, that he is making sure that he understands, which I love the fact that he said, making sure he understands what Trump has said and what Trump has not said. I was like, okay.
Because it just, the hypocrisy that I'm seeing, and I'm going to show my obviously biased opinion here, but the hypocrisy that I'm hearing coming out of his mouth is unbelievable, from defunding the police to fund the police to it just
we're going to kill fracking. We're not going to kill fracking.
Yeah. All we have to do is go back and listen to his debates not that long ago.
He flips on everything, which is fine, but
it's eating at me, and I can't believe that the American public doesn't comprehend this. Maybe they do, and I'm praying for that silent majority. It looks better every day in terms of the polls, and I'm becoming more optimistic because I know if somebody calls me asking my opinion, I'm out.
I can just tell you, America's getting smarter, and you want to know how I know they're getting smarter?
I would like to know.
Do you know that every week 1,000 people move to Texas, Florida, or Tennessee? And do you know where they're all leaving?
Most of them are leaving California. I assume a few from Illinois.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, no, it's
so
there.
They're getting smarter.
They are. Once upon a time, everybody wanted to move to California, including myself. I wanted to move to California.
Everybody wanted to live there. I don't even want to go vacation there anymore.
I mean, there's several. Joe Rogan signs a $100 million contract with Spotify, and he's gone. He's not going to sit there and pay those taxes. Ben Shapiro heading to Nashville with 75 of his employees. I mean,
And did you see that on that Ben Shapiro? I mean, I know 75 employees doesn't seem like a great deal.
No.
But 85% of his 75 employees, all of them who have families, by the way, there's not one single childless person in this deal, evidently. 85% of them have already said they will move with him to Nashville.
Yeah, impressive. They wanted a reason to get out. Or at least darn sure willing to.
So I do know America is getting smarter because they're fleeing California. So hopefully that will work on the election. But are you ready to talk about the shows and stuff like that? Have you got everything off your chest? I mean,
I think
we didn't talk about China.
We did not. I'm going to leave I'm going to leave it alone for now.
Oh,
I wait. I'm sorry. I apologize. I have one story. I'm going to throw my wife under the bus.
Oh, poor Holly.
We're at Target picking up some supplies. I don't remember what it is. And here's this whole rack of masks. And my wife comes up to me and says, "Hey, these are very comfortable," or something positive about them. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I take one off the rack and I look at it, and guess where that damn thing's made?
China.
Not only did they send the China virus, they sell us the masks afterwards. And there is one, I don't know. I looked around. I did not see any other masks available that weren't made in China.
Well, I will tell you that the masks that I probably normally wear are any old iron, and they are made right here in America. So there you go.
Absolutely. I'm going to continue to encourage, please look at labels.
I do
please
not
avoid
think Dale will wear any old iron mask because they're primarily a whole lot of sequins. But, they are made in America, Dale, so it's a thought.
If they're made in America and it's a choice between that and China, I am in.
There you
All
go.
in. We have to. It's not easy. I've been very, very conscious of it in anything I buy, and it is difficult to go and buy what you normally would on a daily basis and not purchase something made from China. But if we would all make an effort to do it, it is going to benefit us as a country very much in the long run. Enough China. Let's go to Denver.
So, of course, Monday, the National Western announced that it is canceled for the year 2021. And I know that is a huge blow to our industry. And there are a lot of people that are really, really down about it. And I get it, and I understand it. Again, I think the thing that we have to focus on and think about is that you have to understand that the people that were in charge of Denver, and I'm talking about the board of directors, I'm not talking about, staff members, but the ones that are actually in charge, they didn't want that show canceled. They obviously are on that board, and because they care about agriculture, they care about Denver and its economy and what that show can do for them. And so they didn't want it canceled. That's what they felt they had to do. And it is a shame, and it's a blow to our industry, but it's also not a death knell. And again, I think that we just have to continue to push forward and to stay positive. We just had Glenn Allen Phillips from the American Royal on here. He is 95% sure and said it on our podcast that the American Royal is a go. And that may be the only big major show that is a go, but at least there was one if that one goes through. And so right now, until there is a proven vaccine and therapeutics, we're going to have some uncertainty. But we have to continue to stay positive. And again, placing a state fair is a difficult situation in itself. When you go to, when these major shows are having these problems with COVID-19, there is no moving that show from that facility or from that town. And it's almost impossible because the people that support those junior market auctions in Denver and these various metropolitan cities, they do that because this influx of cash that comes from the exhibitors into those metropolitan areas, that's why they support these kids in the junior market auctions and spend those dollars there, because it is benefiting their businesses and that local economy. And so there is really no moving them in those areas. And so, again, there'll probably be some replacement things that come up, but it's just almost impossible to move a show like the National Western to a different location that would be more COVID friendly.
No, and I agree with Ryan, and it's pretty devastating when we have shows like Denver cancel, and by the time this episode drops, we may know whether or not Louisville is officially going to take place or not going to take place, and it may not, and there's going to be other shows that cancel. Now, if we could had the luxury of waiting until a couple weeks before the Denver show was supposed to happen and deciding then, our COVID issue may be almost gone at that point, or we may have the therapeutics or vaccines coming into play and we decide, okay, we can do this, but a lot of the decisions have to be made in advance, and I understand that, and it's unfortunate, but it's reality. So I think as we move into 2021, there's a lot of things telling us that we're going to get closer and closer to normality. And I believe that. I truly believe that. But we are going to have cancellations. And for every cancellation, as you've seen so far, we're getting replacement shows, sometimes a couple replacement shows of some sort. And I think as we move forward into 2021 and beyond, we may have actually more shows because of this and more opportunities for our kids to get out. And I think that's great. I know that we have a lot of people here in Illinois that say, well, we didn't have our official state fair, but we got to take our calves out 4 or 5 times this year rather than once or twice. So we're going to stay positive, and I think as a livestock community, it's all going to go the right direction if we continue to jump up and make sure that these kids have a place to show, put on a show, support that show, whatever we can do to make this continue, and it will work out.
And the one thing that to the listeners out there that I'm just going to say, I know this was a huge blow, and I know that your first instinct is to call Louisville or Phoenix or, and say, are you still having your show? Or da-da-da? Let's just not. Because those shows are doing everything they can to make a informed, conscientious decision on what they can do to put on an event or whether they can't, depending on the local governments, the CDC guidelines in that area, etc. And as soon as they are confident in a decision either way, they will let that be known. So let's just take a breath and let them continue to try to put on their event instead of bombarding them with emails and phone calls. Are you going to have a show?
Exactly. And I can give you a reassurance that I've communicated with the Arizona National, and they're doing everything they physically can to make sure that show happens. And not only make sure it happens, but with the cancellation of Denver, they are getting bombarded with calls, and everybody's expecting entries to go through the roof. And this is going to lead us into our topic area, but Arizona National has grown exponentially the past few years. And we'll talk about some reasons why during our topic discussion that hopefully will make sense to you. But with that said, they were at maximum capacity in their junior livestock, at least the lambs, the pigs, and the goats. They had more room in the cattle barn. They could have brought more steers in. But the other species, they were maxed out. There's no more space. So not only are they trying to make sure the show happens, they're trying to adjust to accommodate for these extra entries. They've got their hands full. But the good thing is they're working on it. They're on top of it, doing everything they possibly can. And Ryan, do you think that should take us into our topic?
Absolutely.
What makes or breaks a show and/or our show industry? Ryan, what does?
I think there's lots of different things. And again, with the cancel culture affecting junior livestock shows and livestock shows in general, we have seen more and more people come together and put shows on. And as when this first started and beginning of this podcast, we said that there were going to be a lot of shows happen. And again, some of those may stay, and a lot of them were going to be one-hit wonders. And so, I thought with Denver canceling this week that this would be an opportune time to talk about things that do make or break a show. And I can't stress enough that you've got to be exhibitor-oriented and friendly. And that is something that a lot of shows overlook so much. And the one thing about that I can say, not only from competing at the Arizona National, but helping kids that have competed at Arizona National and also being a judge out there in Phoenix. And I put this in a Facebook post after I got done sorting there this year. That is the most exhibitor-oriented, family-driven show of considerable size that I have ever been to. And that is why people will leave before Christmas and drive to the middle of the desert to go participate in that show. And so that is something that show does very well, but also it is something that all shows need to do better. Even if you're a brand new show starting or you've been one there as long as, some of these shows have, like the National Western, we've got to focus more on it being exhibitor-driven, oriented, and getting their feedback.
And it really is that simple. And we're not trying to put Arizona National up on a pedestal, but when we, and it's just a good example because they went from not that many numbers of junior market animals not that long ago to exploding in numbers. And there's reasons not to go there. It's a long drive. It's over Christmas break. There's a lot of things that maybe you would think, well, this isn't going to work out. But the simple fact, and again, I'm not saying they're doing anything out of the ordinary or anything like that. They're simply creating a positive environment in terms of when you're checking in. Everything that you're doing, it's almost as though they're trying to accommodate you rather than lock you into this little box and wait for you to step outside so you can get in trouble. And we really appreciate things like that and their willingness to take suggestions and make some changes and make it better. That is exactly why we've seen the growth there in numbers as we have, because guess what? The Sale of Champions there is difficult for them. The community there that they're trying to pull buyers into traditionally doesn't understand livestock showing. So Arizona National, when it comes to the Sale of Champions, those numbers are going to be considerably less than a Denver or Kansas City or anywhere else. But yet we still get all these people coming in because it's enjoyable and they make it user friendly. So, and again, I think a lot of shows out there, we talked to Glenn Allen. I think he's doing the exact same thing there at Kansas City, trying to make sure that it comes across and runs professionally. We still have rules and we still have regulations, but let's do that in a friendly manner. From the time that somebody pulls in to park their trailer, you're greeted by somebody that's not grumpy about, oh, here's another trailer I have to park, but let's take you this direction. From the time you go in to check into the office or you have a question about that, you're greeted by a person in the office that's friendly and wants to help, or you're checking in and the person at the scales or wherever, they all have that exhibitor mentality that they've been through this. Let's make it good. Let's enforce the rules that need to be enforced, but let's make it positive.
Right. And, that goes into another thing that I want to bring up about shows. A lot of people think that location is key. And I'm going to be honest with you. Again, I have been on all sides of this, from a judge to a showman to, a broker that goes to shows. Location is the last thing that worries me about a show. As long as the facilities are adequate and they are easy for those families and those people that are showing livestock to work in them and get in them, and there's ample space. If you have a high quality show, people will come no matter where the location is. Of course, being centrally located to the exhibitors that you're trying to pull in is nice, but I really think that is the last thing that anyone that's trying to start up a new show or having a show should be worried about.
No, I agree completely there, Ryan. And you would think, and on the surface, you would think maybe that is important and within reason. If we have to drive, we've gone to Cow Palace a couple times.
People go to the desert after Christmas.
They do, and I've made the trip to California, hauling my kids out there and goats out there, and we're willing to do it. So within reason, it's going to be a little bit geographic, but yeah, within that area, that it doesn't seem to matter as long as we have the other things in place. And it may be as simple as those that are in charge, and we had Glenn Allen on last week. He's a show dad. He's running this American Royal and so involved into this industry. But if we have a full understanding of how it all works from both the show official side and the exhibitor standpoint, I think we can implement procedures that make common sense. And if we just implement some of that common sense, it all goes well.
Another thing that I think is probably one of the things that most people running a show forget a lot of times, and it is something that I battle with my mother about whenever she goes to put on a show. So whatever rules, schedule, prizes, payout, whatever you publish from the beginning, you're going to have to follow through on. And that's something that a lot of people may not realize is very important, but a lot of times these people only look at the fine print one time and they read that and that's what they go into that show with, on what's going to happen and how it's going to play out. And a lot of times, even if you update or send out something that says, we've changed this, tweaked this, etc., they're not going to get it. And so they're going to go to that event thinking this is how it's going to go down. And when it's not that way, they're going to be upset.
And I think there's situations where they don't know, they're predicting higher entries or things like that, and obviously changing some of the payouts and so forth. But you're right, we need to be a little more conscientious to make sure that that's as close as it can be. And that, I think that's going to foster a more positive experience.
And then again, I think the one thing that makes or breaks shows more than anything else is who you get to judge. And again, I can't stress this enough. And I am a person that even before I started judging shows, as much as I do now, that was the number one thing, depending on where we went when I showed, also where the kids that I helped went. You've just got to pick people that are current and conscientious and do a good job, and they're in it for the right reasons. I know a lot of times that shows, especially jackpot shows, they want to save money by getting a judge that's closer or doesn't cost as much in expenses to get them there. Or, hey, this guy does a great job judging cattle. Maybe we can throw him in here in the pig ring too, and it'd be all right. And there are several people that can judge more than one species quite well. There are some people that can judge all species quite well. If you're going to have a show for multiple species, I promise you'll be better off in the end getting someone who those people that show that species trust, respect, and want to show to, and you'll get more entries that way, and it will make up for having multiple judges, in my honest opinion.
I would agree with that, and I know sometimes we're doing it to try to save dollars and keep our budget, but I think you're right. I think you're going to bring more in. And not only do we need to be very conscious of this, and oftentimes the person for that show that's in charge of hiring the judge or selecting the judge, and it may be a committee, it may be a single individual. Unfortunately, it's difficult for everybody to be extremely knowledgeable on all judges, and they have to take somebody else's word for it. Well, they did a good job here or there. But if in any manner, and I know it's not an easy thing to do, there's no direct source for this, but in any manner that you can to do a little research on that particular person and just make sure we're bringing in the best that you possibly can. And I know that's easy to say and difficult to implement, but I think a lot of them, and even as we get to the major show level, on occasion you'll hear a judge sorting a show that you think, well, how is this possible for whatever reason? Sometimes it may not be their ability, just where they're politically affiliated. Do they sell animals into that show? There's just a lot of different things that come into play, and it's difficult unless you're involved in that direct species or that industry very heavily. You're not going to know these things. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask and try to rely maybe on others if you're not as familiar with the industry. And secondly, we're still fighting this in the state of Illinois, and I know we fight it in other places. Once you know who's judging that show, please, for the love of God, release that name. Let those exhibitors know so they can make plans whether they're going to attend the show or not. Just as Ryan stated, that judge determines a lot of the time who's going to show up at that show. So let's put that information out there. And again, it's not so they can contact the judge and try to be politically correct or whatever they're going to do. It's just a matter that people that are trying to succeed in this industry and be very competitive, they're going to do their homework and research what type of animal best fits that judge. And by no means do every judge need to select the same kind of animal, but it's good if we know what their type is, and if we have one that we can take to them and we think it's worth our time, we're going to do so. If we don't have that kind, we're maybe better off just staying home or finding a different show to go to. So it's simple to me. Let's put more thought into who we have judging the shows. And I know sometimes it's difficult to get that information, but let's make that effort. And please, there is, in my opinion, no downside and all upside to announce those judges as early as you have them confirmed.
Completely agree with that, Dale. Another thing that a lot of people ask about or is a topic when you're putting on a show or if you're going to go to a show is, are awards more important, what you're going to give away, or is payout more important? Again, I think they both have positives and negatives. Just from my standpoint and the kids that I have worked with in terms of showing, I never went to a show and I never had a kid that went to a show just because they were giving a certain award. I did go to shows and I did have kids that went to shows because they were paying out a certain amount. And so that's my perspective on it. I think the most important thing on either one of these, whatever you're going to do, publicize it and then stick by what you're going to, what you've said you're going to do.
And I can take the other side of that, and I would agree that I think that's what Ryan has stated there, that some are going because it's a certain payout, and I don't doubt that, because we're trying to recoup some of that investment. But as far as my children are concerned, and again, they're not as concerned about the payout because they're not paying all the expenses, especially at a younger age. But my youngest daughter is excited to go back to Phoenix because she won a belt buckle that had some turquoise in it, just an award that was kind of unique. So I think there's, in some of those cases, the younger kids get pretty excited about some of those awards. So if you can put some thought into it and do some of those things, and I know we're handing out a lot of banners. They're not overly expensive, and you can make a banner pretty reasonable and hand out a lot of them. I think that's been popular. But yeah, do whatever you can and try to balance that out a little bit. Let's try to have a payback. And there's always a lot of discussion. Do we put all the money into the champion and reserve or top 5 and don't pay out your top 5 in each class or top 10 in each class? Do we put the money and spread it out across the whole show? Do we put it at the top? I don't know what the right answer is, and I think each show maybe is gonna have to work that out on their own, and there's going to be a correct balance for that individual show. If we want to bring the best animals in and the very elite animals in, I think weighting that money in the top end is probably going to do that. If you want to try to bring in more numbers and people that maybe aren't going just to win the show but are wanting to place in their class, then if we spread that money out and make it class money, it works. So I don't know if there's an absolute direction that I can say that needs to go, but each show is going to have to figure that on their own and the targeted audience that they want to bring in.
I think another thing that gets talked about or thrown around a lot is, and again, this doesn't matter whether it's a jackpot show or a state fair or a major show, should you have a weigh-in or should you have a weigh-back? And again, there are pros and cons to both. You know, I know that I think for the large majority of people, I think having a weigh-in is a lot easier because you go, you weigh in, it's done, it is what it is. Weigh-backs, you don't have to have an extra day or an extra set of hours where those animals go in through the line, you just turn in your cards. But then again, there is, you know, the hassle of maintaining that weight if you're an exhibitor or somebody there helping, making sure that, you know, you're going to weigh back if you're one of those ones chosen, stuff like that. Again, at a jackpot level, something that has become more increasingly popular is that you turn in your weight cards and they leave it up to the judge's discretion if an animal needs to be weighed. I've come across this a lot. It does not bother me one bit. If that's the rule they're going to put in place and that's how they're going to run the show, I do not mind having that burden on me as a show judge. Some might. And again, it depends on who you get to sort those animals. So there's lots of different ways to do it, and there's pros and cons to all of it. I think, again, the thing is, depending on how much time you have at your show and how many people you have there to help facilitate things is going to be the biggest difference on whether you can have a weigh-in or a weigh-back, because having a weigh-in, it does take people and time to physically get those animals off and on and through a scale. And so that's probably going to be the deciding factor on that for a lot of shows.
Nope, and I want to clarify, and I think it's a regional issue, just to clarify some of the different terms Ryan's using there. When we talk about a weigh-in, we're physically weighing that animal. We're not doing a show official is physically weighing that animal. And in some cases, and it's not as much anymore, but it used to be you'd weigh that animal at that time and you're done. No way back, nothing after that. Under that circumstance, people would come in pretty wrung out, a little dehydrated, off feed, to try to, with the goal of looking bigger within your class, trying to get that advantage. And then you have your weigh-in where they still implement maybe a 5% weigh back at the time that you entered your class or finished that class. And under those circumstances, then you're obviously going to have a little closer to show weight when you go across that scale. So a weigh-in without a weigh back, a weigh-in with a weigh back, and then the third one that appears to be was way more popular in the South and it's creeped up into the North now. You simply declare your weight, and then you're going to have to be within a certain percent or so many pounds of that weight, what we call a declared weight that Ryan talked about. And in my mind, as an exhibitor and trying to shed light on maybe what's the most user-friendly, it seems as though as long as practice scales are provided that are somewhat monitored and consistent with the show ring scale weight, I think the majority of the participation or the exhibitors would prefer to declare their own weight, and then it's in their lap whether they're going to stay within that weight range when they go through the ring. And that seems to be becoming more and more popular.
When you're putting on these shows, things that go overlooked that may not seem important when you're planning one or getting one together is that it takes a lot more than just a handful of people. It takes a handful of people to organize one and put one together, but it takes a lot more than that to actually make that show happen. And so one thing that I think I hear more complaints about than anything else is ring help, and it doesn't matter what species it is. And a lot of these shows are run by 4-H and FFA chapters or, groups of people that are raising money for like their projects at the county fair. And so a lot of times there's a lot of the help out there are actually kids, and that's great and that's fine. And, if that kid is conscientious and committed to doing that and good out in the ring in terms of helping other kids, I think that's fine. I know a lot of kids that I'd rather have them out there with me as a sorter in terms of getting those cattle, lambs, and goats pushed around the ring or getting those hogs pinned than a lot of adults, but it just depends on the individual. I think the one thing that I can say wholeheartedly is no matter what species it is and what show, you need at least 2 people inside that arena with you at all times, because it doesn't matter what species it is. You got to have somebody in terms of the lambs, sheep, and goats, or lambs, goats, and cattle that are going to be the leaders so they know where to go, and then there's got to be somebody, at least one other person, pushing those animals around that won't lead. In pigs, you got to have at least 2 people because you might have a fight, people getting pinned, you got to have 2 people at least. That's not including the person that is checking in the animals at the gate. That's another person, and another person that's actually writing down the results of that class. I'm just talking about 2 people inside the arena with that show judge that is making that show be as efficient as possible in terms of getting those animals in and out of the arena.
That is so correct, Ryan. And as I travel and have judged shows, that is one thing that slows down the flow of the show. It makes it more difficult for the judge. And then as an exhibitor, it's frustrating when you're on the outside and maybe your goat or lamb or steer is not the one that's not leading, but maybe the one in front of you, and that's inhibiting your animal from moving out and presenting itself the best way it can to the judge. And I do think it's overlooked at a lot of shows. We either don't have anybody in the ring, or maybe we're not putting a person in the ring that we could find a better person that's just a little more ring savvy and understands how things need to go. But you mentioned the check-in person. In addition to a check-in person or a clerk, that gate check-in person, as we travel to shows throughout the country, county fairs, jackpot shows, national shows, there's a lot of variation in those people that are calling classes. And it's frustrating because some people aren't going to come up in time and they get irritable and they're there all day. But I can assure you, if we could turn that around just a little bit and realize that that person that's checking that young exhibitor in, this young exhibitor's excited, nervous, all the emotions that they're going through right before they enter that ring. And here's this cranky person saying that you need to be right here or right there, or you need to have something different. Your name tag isn't displayed correctly. All these things need to happen. Let's just do it in a more positive manner and make it a better experience. And sometimes those people checking in aren't always the most enlightening and positive people in the world.
Another pretty crucial job at a show that I think gets overlooked is the announcer. And an announcer is somebody that can either really make that show fun and enlightening, or can just kind of be a drag on the whole thing. And no matter where you're at, everybody knows someone who is either very good at public speaking or good on a microphone, or, a lot of shows that I've been to, they use the local radio talk show host that does the morning news or stuff like that. May not know a lot about livestock, but's got a good voice and is entertaining. And so that is something that goes overlooked a lot that can go a long way. Having a good announcer, also, that person's job is to use the microphone that goes in the back of the barns. And this may be a separate person that is conscientious in livestock savvy, saying, hey, we're on class 5. If you're class 6, 7, and 8, you need to be on your way. And so, again, sometimes that takes 2 people. Sometimes one person can do it all by themselves. But you've got to remember the announcements in the back to the people that are getting ready are just as important as what the announcements that are going on inside the show ring. And another thing is, I don't care who you are, where you are in the class, everybody likes to hear their name called out over that mic. And that's something that probably doesn't mean as much to some of us, but to the masses, when it means a lot. And so, again, I think it's always important to recognize those kids no matter where they place in that class. Make sure you call their names and recognize them for their efforts.
No, absolutely. And Ryan, something that I was unaware of, and you're talking about that announcer and making sure they do a nice job and maybe even a little bit entertaining. And that's a good thing because, we don't think about livestock shows being entertaining, but when you and I judged in Ohio, it opened my eyes a little bit when we were judging ringside. I was sorting goats and you're sorting pigs, and we're sharing the same microphone and just bantering back and forth and having fun with each other a little bit. It was interesting how the crowd responded to that. So not only are they at a show and getting all of those things that we tie to the youth stock show, but they enjoyed it. They were having fun with it. You and I were having fun with it. There's no reason why these things can't be not only educational, but entertaining as well.
Absolutely. Another thing that I think is important, no matter what the size of the show, is having a photographer. And now more than ever, there are so many different people that are very good at this, that specialize in this throughout the country. Just this last week in Florida, there was a young lady that I also got to work with at the Brangus Junior Nationals, but she's from Florida. And so no matter where you are, research somebody that will be a person that will take ring shots of those kids, because those ring shots are more important to almost all of us than the backdrop shots. The backdrop shots are important to the people that raised those animals and sold those animals. I promise you, almost everyone else would rather see a shot of that kid actually getting that animal drove, stuck, set, etc., or getting the handshake from the judge. And so just make sure that you find somebody that's capable. Again, more times than not, if they take ring shots, that's going to be a big plus for you, because everything now gets shared on social media, and they want to share those ring shots of those kids and those backdrop shots. And then in talking about this is going to sound simple and trivial, but I think it's just something that needs to be brought up. A lot of times, no matter who the photographer is, it's the show's job to have the backdrop area set up for pictures. I know that a lot of these shows now, more than ever, are going to those vinyl banners that kind of have the logo and the show name in the background, and that's cool and that's great, and all of those work. One thing that I want to caution everybody on, if you are a show that is putting a backdrop together, let's continue to be exhibitor-oriented and friendly in terms of where you are putting and setting those backdrops up. Sometimes they're in the ring. That causes some problems in terms of if they're not somewhere, if they're right there where the animals are exiting in and out, you might want to rethink that. If they are in a different location than the ring, try to make it fairly close to the exit of the show arena so those exhibitors don't have to trek those animals a great distance to get their backdrop shots taken. Another thing is, let's have some common sense. And, again, decorations are very nice. But if you've got one of those vinyl backdrops that's got, graphics and the show name, we're focused on what the animal looks like there. So that's probably enough. For instance, if you're going to set up a backdrop and you're going to have all these decorations, and my mother is absolutely the world's worst, I promise you. This is where this comes from. The first thing that steer heifer's going to do if there's a bale of hay at the backdrop is they're going to try to eat it. And that sounds dumb and y'all going to laugh, but I promise you, you do not know the number of times as a judge or as a showman that has been there, and that is a problem. Because everybody thinks hay makes a great, prop and a backdrop, and it looks nice until the cow wants to eat it. And so, again, in terms of sheep and goats, if there's plants there, they're going to want to gnaw on stuff like that. So I would say if you put the money in to one of those nice vinyl backdrops, maybe, and you don't have to put a year on it. So you can use it year and year again, make it nice, and that's probably good enough.
I agree completely, and that makes sense. And there's one more thing I wanted to kind of go backwards to. You talked about a person announcing in the barn to make sure that you know where you're at and fitting and getting ready and getting up to the ring. I don't know what app it is, but I've been to a couple shows where you actually have an app and they're updating via the apps. And that's really convenient. If they say, hey, class 1 is or class 3 is going in the ring, just so you have that sense of timing right there if you can't get a microphone system. And I think especially as we go to more of these jackpot shows that we're showing off the trailer. And by the way, I think those shows have had so many people be positive that the fact that, wow, we don't have to unload, set up pins, all of these things. It seems like at the jackpot level, showing off the trailer has just become huge this summer. I think that's a trend that will continue. But whatever app that you can implement to use that, and if you have somebody available to make sure that's being utilized and updating, I think that works out extremely, extremely well. There was one more common sense thing I wanted to bring in, Ryan, and this goes to more maybe the sheep and goat side of it, maybe even the cattle side as well. But sometimes when we're checking into these shows, we will have ear tags that person or that veterinarian that wants to put in these sheep or goats, maybe calves as well, and they're required to maybe put it in the left ear or the right ear. Maybe you already have an established hole in the right ear, and they think it needs to be in the left ear, and they make a new hole. All of a sudden, that lamb or goat or calf goes off feed. They're sore. They don't want to show as well. These kids have done so much work and put so much effort into getting these animals just right, and then something as simple as that's going to cause them some discomfort or pain throws them all the way off. It just doesn't make any sense. So if we need to tag these animals for whatever reason, as exhibitors, let's make sure we have some existing holes available, some dummy tags in there that we could take out to put in there. But from a show standpoint, allow those people tagging to put them in an existing hole, or maybe let them put it right through an existing ear tag so that that animal isn't experiencing that pain and isn't going off feed and going backwards for that exhibitor that's worked so hard to move forward. And we don't see it as much anymore, but we still run into it at a few shows, and we have to implement, just implement the common sense, and I think we'll be okay.
Very valid point. When you were talking about the apps and stuff like that, that was going into my final point in terms of things that I think are important about a show. I think now more than ever, having apps, like you said, that send alerts on what class they're on and what class needs to be coming up there, or just using social media. Every single family that goes to a show, somebody's got Facebook. And if you have a Facebook page for your show, post those classes up there, make announcements on there. We're on the Champion Berkshire Drive. If you've got a spot, head this way. It is a lot easier to look at your phone at your stall and get an update on Facebook or through an app than it is to walk out of the barn, walk all the way to the ring, see what class it is, see what's going on, walk all the way back, get your kid, get your animal. It's just much, much more convenient. I'm not saying that you still can't post a list of those classes, a hard copy up somewhere at that show, but I promise you, the more information you put on social media or use one of those apps that are out there available to get those things out to the exhibitors, then I think that is a real, real good thing to do from here on out. And, as we wrap up this topic, I know we didn't cover anything. We'll try to hit some of the highlights. But there's one thing that, I do want to state, and I think that is important, especially after the year that we have had this year and all the challenges that we have faced and the cancellations and new startups of shows. I think now more than ever, it is more important that we continue to make opportunities happen for these kids in the livestock industry. And I'm going to go further than that. I'm going to say that there is no rule and there is no law etched in some stone that says just the major shows that are out there right now are the only ones that can exist. And I think now more than ever, there needs to be another show or shows come together and open up and start anew and embrace some of the new developments and the new things and the new wave of showing stock on a major show level. And it can happen, and I think you will see that happen. And I look forward to that because there's nothing wrong with all the shows that have been there and have served this industry for years and years and years, and they do great things for the livestock show industry and the kids and the families and everyone that makes up it, and I hope they have continued success. But there is also nothing standing in the way of us creating more opportunities for these kids on that level.
I love it. Absolutely. And we saw some of that happening through COVID, and let's even take it to a bigger level and look forward to the years to come that we can have as far as new shows that stick around and really do a good job and implement some of these things that we've actually talked about today. I think if we focus on a positive experience, we implement some common sense, and remember that it's all about the experience that family has. If those exhibitors have a enjoyable experience of that show, they're going to come back. I've enjoyed discussing this particular topic, and hopefully it's been beneficial for many of you out there. We're going to move on to question and answer. Ryan, we have a couple questions to address this week for question and answer. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
And our first question, Melissa Hammond submits, does clipping the hair off a goat for jackpot shows affect how they grow in regards to taller or wider?
I'm just going to be real honest here. I do not know of any animal or species of livestock, whether show-related or non, that clipping hair would make a difference in how they grow.
I have to come clean here. I've been asked this question many times, especially in the goat
This is a first
arena.
for me, and I'm glad.
No, and the first time it was asked, it was actually brought up to me many years ago before we even bought into the goat business, that the theory was if you were to take some hair off not even all their hair off, but shave their tops or shave their hip out or clip that hair off, that they take a growth spurt or they stouten up or they do different things. And I'm thinking, well, I cannot come up with any biological explanation of that unless it's really hot and it's cooler. I can accept that if they're too hot, you take the hair off, they're cooler, they grow better. I'm okay with that, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. But I can assure you that people that I actually very much respect in the sheep and goat industry do claim that there's biological changes after we clip them off. I cannot.
Y'all gonna have to prove this to me in like real life because I am calling absolute bullshit.
I've been on the same page as you, and I guess I still am. But at the same time, I don't disagree that these people truly believe they're seeing an impact. I cannot come up with, I've thought about it, I've gone inside out on it. I cannot come up with a biological reason outside of that animal's a little bit cooler. And in general, we're not even talking about the time of year that maybe it's too hot out. So we're going to leave that as is. I don't know that we answered it real well, but Ryan is very confident. And
I'm going to say no.
From a scientific standpoint, I am completely with him. But if you were to survey many of the breeders and people out there exhibiting goats and sheep, they're going to tell you that it makes a difference. I would love for somebody to answer that better or give me that biological explanation.
I don't know. I'm going to have to see this with my own eyes. So anybody that wants to challenge this and say this happens, you call me, you text me, I'm going to come up, I'm going to see you shave your animal, and then we're going to watch it grow differently because I need to see this with my own eyes.
I'm in on that one. I'll take it. I'm with you. Shelby Backenhuss. If the animal in front of you, whether you're in a goat show, a lamb show, cattle show, not a pig show, obviously, if the animal in front of you is not moving as fast as you would like or is being difficult, how do you adjust as the person behind that?
This can go for cattle too, because this happens a lot in there too. If the one in front of what I tell my children that show for me, or if I was showing, my first instinct would be to try to help them get their animal moving properly by twisting his tail, slapping it on the rear, trying to get it, up and going again. If that's not working and the ring help has come and this animal is still stalled out, then that's going to be a problem. I know that you're probably going to say that you just need to motor on past that one so yours can go and move out correctly and stuff like that. I would consider that rude, as if I was the exhibitor that was stalled out. If I was a judge and saw someone just blow on past a kid, I would probably consider that rude on the part of the exhibitor. Now, as a judge, when this situation happens, I am very conscientious that most animals follow another animal a lot more than leading by themselves. So I will tell the kid behind him, lead on up and see if that one will follow you. And so, but I think just to blow on past somebody, I'm not going to say that's probably what you need to do.
I think, and it goes back to the ring help. Let's hope there's ring help out there and that they're assisting and they take care of the problem in a fairly quick manner. If there's not ring help or it's not going well, I agree. Ryan's comment about the person behind, let's twist their tail. Let's do what we can as a helpful gesture. If there's no ring help, if nothing's working and the judge for some reason isn't signaling to go around be in front of him and hope that stubborn animal follows, I'm all for it. Go for it. Do it if there's no other option. A pet peeve of mine, and this triggers a very strong feeling I have. In the goat ring specifically, when we have ring help out there and we have a goat that's not leading, and there's lots of goats in the world that just for some reason clam up in the ring and are not going to lead as well as you want, nearly every class there's going to be one. So maybe in a goat ring we need 3 people instead of 2, but when they get behind that goat to get it to go, that ring help grabs hold of that tail, lifts those hind legs off the ground and tries to get him going. You want to know what happens to that tail the rest of the class, Ryan?
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Flags right down. And what happens to the hip when that tail's down on a goat?
Doesn't look as level, even though it's not level to begin with.
Goat's hips aren't level to begin with, and we all of a sudden now have a ski slope and that goat's not cooperating. The last thing I tell my kids, the families I'm working with, we never grab that tail, no matter what. We can put our hand just at the base of the tail and give them a push and do those things, but we do not grab a hold of that tail and pull on it to try to get them to go, partially because more times than not, they're going to hunker down more, so it doesn't work. And secondly, you've completely thrown that goat off for the rest of the class, and it is not going to present itself as you would hope. In the goat arena, we're way better off hoping the judge or the ring help says, let's get one in front of you and let them follow, kind of like Ryan stated earlier. So I think there's a lot of different opinions out there, and we do run into this. I think it's an excellent question, and I think having good ring help is probably going to alleviate a lot of that problem. And as a judge, and I'm sure, Ryan, you've done it many times, when you don't have ring help, you're the one that goes over and tries to help them out.
Oh, yeah, I do, and try to go help exhibitors out. And then I'm very conscientious as a judge. If one's just not going to move, then I tell people to go around and stuff like that. But I guess, especially if you were in a showmanship setting, I would be very cautious about blowing on past somebody. But
I agree.
One thing, another little tip in terms of this, and I don't care if it's a sheep, a goat, or a calf, one thing that I always say, normally when you're going to lead out, you're always making a turn and then you go down a long stretch so the judge can see those animals, walk. I always tell my kids, and when I'm showing still to this day, I will hold up just a little bit, not completely stop, but just hold up a little bit till that judge is focused back on my animal, and then let that animal walk at the rate of speed that it needs to look the best. And so that way you've got some room in case somebody does stall out. He's still going to get to see, he or she who's judging is going to get to see that animal in motion for a few steps in the correct manner.
Excellent. No, I agree completely. Ryan, it's been enjoyable. I've enjoyed today's topic and discussion. I hope it's popular with the listeners. And until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?